From back-to-back disappointing seasons to the aging core to Klay Thompson leaving in free agency, the writing's on the wall. The Golden State Warriors dynasty is over. Let's talk about it. The question is now, where do you go from here? Do you do the unthinkable and trade Steph Curry? Do you build around the young core? Or do you trade those young assets to get a second star to put around Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr? The idea of trading Steph Curry is straight out stupid. The Warriors would be so dumb to do it. He's really the only reason they get primetime games on national TV. He's really the only reason they sell jerseys. He's really the only reason that Chase Center sells out. So for the ownership or the GM to trade Steph Curry really makes no sense at this point. And the fact that he's still a top 10 player, top 5 player in the NBA, it would be silly to trade him. So trading Steph Curry probably is not going to happen. Now, for the first time in maybe his entire career, he's started to put pressure on the front office to make a trade. We've heard him say a number of quotes of, yeah, I want to retire as a Warrior, but, you never know. I don't really buy too much into it. It seems like he just wants to win, and saying things like that maybe he could leave in the future to put pressure on the GM and ownership. It's a weird tactic to play, considering he signed an extension not too long ago and still has, I think, 2 to 3 years left on his deal. So even if, he's trying to put pressure on the team, I don't think they're going to buy too much into it. But the reason Steph Curry is putting pressure on the front office is clearly because he wants to win. So that goes into the next point. Do you trade your young assets to get a second star to put around a Steph Curry, a Draymond Green, a Steve Kerr, a Kevon Looney, an Andrew Wiggins? And that's where you go into the young assets. You have Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Trace Jackson Davis, your draft pick from last year, who blossomed into one of the best young centers in the NBA. These are 4 guys that I would imagine have at least a little trade value. Now, it gets tricky when you try to make trades with these guys because they're not making all that much money. So taking back a really good player, you're going to have to package maybe 1 or 2 of them to really get a nice player like a Lauri Markkanen, like a Brandon Ingram, like a Jimmy Butler if everything went right. Is it worth it to trade Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga and all your draft capital for a Lauri Markkanen, which seems to be the most realistic out of the names I named? I don't know. Does it make you a championship contender? I don't think so. Maybe if everything went right and you have a miracle run like 2022 where Andrew Wiggins blossoms into an all-star again and Kevon Looney returns to his 2021 year, or you get a big jump from the young guys you keep, or Draymond Green somehow shoots even better from 3 next year. A lot of things would have to go right for me to look at the Warriors as a team that could win the chip, which at this point is kind of all that matters. I mean, are you really going to trade for Lauri Markkanen to be the 6th seed? Is that really that important to trade pretty much your entire future? Probably not. And if there's one thing I know about this front office, A, if it doesn't save them money, they're not going to make the trade. And B, if it doesn't guarantee them a chance of winning a championship, they're not going to make the trade. And doing an acquisition for a Lauri Markkanen, trading a Brandon Podziemski and a Jonathan Kuminga, and maybe even a Moses Moody, does probably neither of these. Lauri Markkanen's eligible for extension. He probably gets the max. I think the Warriors front office has a little bit of PTSD from extending guys a little too soon. We saw it with Andrew Wiggins. We saw it with Jordan Poole. They shipped Jordan Poole off the next year after they paid him, and Andrew Wiggins they've been shopping for 2 seasons now, it seems like. The Warriors have had a decent free agency. They got one of the best shooters in the NBA like Buddy Hield to replace Klay Thompson's shooting percentage. You got DeAnthony Melton, who's an interesting defensive guard to put alongside Steph Curry. And you got Kyle Anderson, who just feels like a Warriors player. He's like 6'9", 6'10" forward who can pass and defend and can kind of run the offense and at times shoot the 3. Hasn't been all that successful recently. But those 3 acquisitions, in theory, make you at least better than you were last year on paper. So adding a Lauri Markkanen maybe you feel like gets you to the next level. I don't know. If I had to guess what the Warriors will do, from looking at their past, looking at what Steph Curry has said to the media, and looking at their free agency acquisitions this year, I would expect them to stay pat, keep their young core, hope they take a next step, and kind of ride off into the sunset with Steph Curry as your best player, kind of doing a farewell tour with some young guys. That's kind of what it's looking like. I know that might disappoint a lot of Warriors fans, it might disappoint a lot of NBA fans, and it might actually excite some people who are tired of the Golden State Warriors. When we look at the next season, if they do keep all their young guys, Jonathan Kuminga has to show something next year. And while he's gotten better almost every year, it still is a little shaky whether Kuminga is actually a good NBA player or if he's just like an athletic guy who can put up numbers on not a very good team. You also look at young guys like Moses Moody, who hasn't shown a lot. You can blame that on Steve Kerr's playing time or the way the Warriors have acquired guys at his position, but at the end of the day, Moses Moody has not shown a lot. Is Brandon Podziemski the real deal? Is he a guy who has all-star potential like we've heard Joe Lacob say, like we've heard Mike Dunleavy Jr. say, like we've heard Brandon Podziemski say? Or is he just a hustle guard who, will be a career backup, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but for a team that's kind of banking on one of these guys to make the next step, Brandon Podziemski being the starting 2 next year needs to be better than just a hustle guy. Is Trayce Jackson-Davis kind of peaked? He's a 6'9", 24, 25-year-old second-year center who, do we think he's going to get a jump shot? Do we think he's going to be more athletic or a better defender in the NBA? Probably not. These are all questions the Golden State Warriors are going to have to answer during the season. Would I expect the Golden State Warriors to be in the playoffs next year? Looking at the stacked West, looking at teams like the Memphis Grizzlies are back, looking at teams like the Pelicans getting better, looking at teams like the Suns getting better, looking at teams like the Rockets getting better, all these teams that are on the come-up, even the Kings getting a DeMar DeRozan, all these teams on a come-up really hurt the Warriors for a team that maybe got marginally better, but as much as Klay Thompson sucked last year, you might miss his 20 points per game, which he could. Although he was not super efficient last year, if you look at his numbers, Klay Thompson had a pretty decent year on paper. Now, the eye test doesn't support that, but the Warriors are going to need someone to step up. And I feel like they've been saying that, and we've been saying that, and the media's been saying that for the last couple of years, and it hasn't really happened. Andrew Wiggins has continued to disappoint and not look like the all-star player he was 2 seasons ago. Draymond Green has been on the decline, and it doesn't help that all through last season he wasn't even available due to his antics, punching players in the face and choking players and going on his podcast. And is Draymond Green in the right headspace to go win another championship? I don't know. He used to be able to put up the antics of Draymond Green because what he was putting up on the court. Does he still give you that on the court at this point? I don't know. He's going to have to prove it. Is Jonathan Kuminga one of the best young players in the NBA, or is he an overrated guy like all the GMs voted for this season? Is Brandon Podziemski the real deal, or is he just a hustle guard? Is Moses Moody a valuable young player, or is he just all right? Is Trayce Jackson-Davis peaked? Is Kevon Looney washed? Is Buddy Hield just an empty stats guy? Is Kyle Anderson cooked? All these questions are going to need to be answered. So now, it's time for you guys to let me know. Do the Golden State Warriors trade Steph Curry? Do they trade all their young guys for Lauri Markkanen? Do they build around the young guys and look towards the future? I don't know. Let me know.